Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by, strength and conditioning royalty, Mr. Michael Hill. He's shaking his head no.
No chance. Yeah.
University of Georgetown, head strength and conditioning. Is that title head of strength and conditioning?
I am now the Associate Athletic Director of Sports Performance. It's a
Dude,
fancier way. It's, I guess, 2024 way of saying I run a weight room. Yeah.
amazing. And are you still primarily working with men's basketball?
I just this past year stepped away from that. So, yep.
How long were you with the men's basketball team?
I I came here in 2004 and I started working with men's basketball in 2004 as the assistant. I took over 6 years later in 2010. And you could say roughly almost 19 years. So 6 years
Wow.
as the assistant, and then 13 years as the head. So just as I've been at Georgetown for roughly 2 decades, 1 year for free, the rest are paid, and 20 years at one spot, which is a rarity. In this field.
That's borderline unheard of in this
Yeah,
industry.
yes, absolutely.
Um, I've actually told this story a number of times on other podcasts of when we first met. I don't know if you remember when we came to the weight room,
Yeah,
and so we were driving to this, I believe it was to the CSCCa conference. It was our first stop, and we walk into the field house. And I'm like, okay, this is Georgetown. Like, I thought it would be a little bit more professional.
exactly.
There's literally like a tarp dividing the field from the weight
Yeah,
room.
yeah. Revenge of the Nerds, right?
And we walked in, and you're immediately like, hey, what are we training? I was like,
Yeah,
I love these guys. These are my people. We ended
yeah.
up, we ended up smashing some box squats, and I'm not sure if I can share this story now because I feel like if you did this in a weight room these days, there would be immediate backlash. But you guys were doing these like Widowmaker sets with men's soccer where you'd have them walk their squats out, take the J hooks off the rack and make them do AMRAPs.
Burn the ships. Yeah. I don't think you can. I don't think some of that stuff you can do. I think we also coached with no sleeves and sand. I know I coached in no sleeves and sandals, a couple of chains around my neck, just in case I wanted to rip out some pull-ups or dips with some added weight. But there's some stuff that we had to change and become professional over the years as we grew. But I do remember that day. I think we got a new bar in, or every
Yeah.
time we kind of got something new, we just all kind of gathered around and tried it out. And I guess to say that is like Coach Carl Johnson and some other staff members,
Yep.
moved a little bit more weight than I did. I was more of a conservative some days, but we still got after it. My conservativeness was also consistent throughout the year. So, yeah, I do remember that day. Yeah, very vividly. Yeah.
So awesome. For a young strength coach those trips for me were super special because we got exposed to so many different weight rooms, right? Like on that one trip, we went to Georgetown, we went to VCU, uh, we stopped at Campbell
Oh, yeah.
in South Carolina. I'm trying to think what else. We stopped at UNC Charlotte, UNC and UNC Charlotte. It was just like so incredible. But to have 20 years of your career, and if I'm safe to assume, like you weren't at another school before Georgetown,
No, no.
was there ever the incentive to move on?
Actually, there was, and there has been a lot of I guess both ways. Me seeking out, and
Mhm.
also people seeking myself.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
it, but at the end of the day, I guess I've been very fortunate. I'll say this: I could stay at Georgetown probably for the rest of my life, but I could also leave tomorrow. And I say that both ways is I've done the best that I can with the situation that I've had, and it's
Mhm.
ever evolving. But I'd also like to think that just like somebody trained me, Coach Augie Morelli, to be the leader of this, I am training the next group to be the leader of this. I'm transferring my knowledge, skills, and abilities as a knowledge transfer specialist to pass that on. And then once I leave, it's just seamless. I step out of that stream and somebody else steps into that stream and just kind of takes it on its way and makes it their own. So, um, I've had chances to leave, but it just hasn't been the right position or the right job.
I find it incredibly refreshing to you speak so honestly so passionately about the transfer of knowledge because there's a quote that I always come back to whenever it's like, well, what if I educate people? What if I train these people up and they leave? Like, well, what if you train them up and they stay? And I feel like in strength and conditioning, especially at the college level, because there is this culture of a revolving door, you're almost disincentivized to invest in your staff because they're probably going to be gone within a couple of years.
Yeah.
Why have you held so? And this is something that like I've witnessed from afar. Is you hold very strongly to that principle of bringing up the people around you.
Yeah, I guess we're talking about this and they're talking about the situation. I got the quote. Todd Hammer said, "We do a very good job of organically working people into our system and then organically working on ourselves out." When some people they try and create a system of attrition and try to eliminate people, really, if someone comes here and they find out 6 months later, they don't want the collegiate setting. Okay, it's my job to not fire you or not push you into a different direction. Is to help you grow. It's not we're not in the military business of making people quit the profession or having them fit into my Georgetown or my system or uh,
Mhm.
this program. It's like I give you a team. It's your team to lose. I give you parameters to the left, to the right. I help you grow as a coach. But really, like Carl Johnson said, the fun is in the autonomy is in
Mhm.
the autonomy, but also you have guidance and mentors. And whether that's me, whether that's assistant coach, whether that's somebody from outside guiding you within, I think it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And I'm all in on the journey and helping other people with that journey. Now, sometimes I've taken a lot of crap, a lot of shit for it. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? And really, I love it when 5 years, meaning now 20 years, I love it when 5, 10 years down the road, people turn around and come back and say, I understand this. I understand now what you're trying to say. Um,
You gotta have like a very almost like a very stoic demeanor, right? To be able to weather the storm, to especially in a high pressure environment like Georgetown basketball. Well, and I mean Georgetown has a lot of really high performance teams, right? Like
yeah,
basketball, track and field. Um, did you guys have football? No,
yeah, we do.
you
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Okay,
yep.
so I mean, to be in that high pressure of an environment, to stick to your guns in those challenging situations, like how do you approach that?
Yeah. So speaking of at the whole programs, we have 30 sports here at
Oh,
Georgetown. But I'll say, speaking of doing basketball for let's just call it 2 decades, right?
mhm.
So doing basketball for roughly 2 decades. One, you really have to be confident. I shouldn't say as a subject matter expert right away, but your knowledge, skills, and abilities. And I'll say you have to be a captain, KPT. You have to know it. You have to perform it in order to teach it. And so with that, I had to have a lot of confidence. I had to build trust around me. I had to have the situational awareness to notice when it was going to the left, going to the right, because not only was I at Georgetown, I was at Georgetown with Coach Thompson, with Big Coach, with JT3, with Patrick Ewing. So I had to be very confident and very knowledgeable and very adaptable to what the situation, what the Georgetown Hoya paranoia was, take that all into account and then spit out a good product daily. And really, it comes back to what I said at the beginning, is just being consistent with everything I did and being a pro at what I did, right? Proactive, relentless opportunities. So just going out there every single day and just trying to represent and be a pro. Uh, and I had to learn very fast with that.
As you're talking, I'm like, it would be so easy to keep a bullet in the chamber all the time and be really afraid to make decisions in an environment like that. But if you operate scared, you'll never win. How do you balance that, man?
I guess, you got to be, I shouldn't say choose your battles. You got to be very calculative. Um, but it comes back to confidence and believing. I'll say, I'm throwing up a lot of acronyms because I'm trying to write a book called Acronym Academy.
Oh, I
But
love it.
CPR. So what gives life to things? CPR does, which is care, passion, and respect. If I show those athletes care, if I show them passion, if I show respect, that's going to bring back more life to myself. And really, that's really what, when I walked into that room and, Coach Augie Morelli was the first strength coach here. That's what I gave him with the next job with JT3 and Big Coach and then Coach Ewing. It just went on and on to the next job. And I hopefully that's what I emulate is, if I don't know anything else, squats, sets, reps, whatever system it is that I have care, I have passion, and I have respect for what I'm doing and trying to add value or values needed. So, it just came down again, consistent confidence for me, just
Mm.
having I guess maybe just overly prepared for.
Okay, now you're speaking my language because I think a lot of people think confidence. They think, well, I mean, these days to have someone be confident, it immediately comes with the connotation that they're arrogant or cocky.
Yeah.
But for me, confidence is being prepared, right? If
Mhm.
you know you're prepared for the situation, there is nothing to worry about. You can adapt to whatever consequences you're faced with. And I think a lot of people will talk about like imposter syndrome is a really big thing in
Absolutely.
in social media and in our industry. But I think imposter, like if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, it's because you're an imposter. It's because you haven't done the work.
Yeah.
So for you to say preparedness, I'm like, yes, 100%.
It's yeah, and I think that comes from me just growing up. And I'll say I was good at everything and not great at anything. And, I had a good sphere of athleticism around me, but I had to work really hard at all of that. I had to work really hard in the classroom. I had to work really hard at everything. And so consistently reading, going over things, repetition, doing stuff. That's why I mean, kind of working in the shadows, right? And working when no one's looking. So when it comes out and you perform, it looks pretty much effortless. But on the back end, it's like, it's tireless. I mean, it's tiresome, right? So it
Yeah.
looks tireless. Um, and even for this podcast, for any speech, for any interview, for any lift, like I just before, if you're not nervous for something that you're about to do and perform, there's something, I shouldn't say wrong, because that's the wrong term. It
Something
should
missing.
be
I think
excited.
there's something missing.
Yeah, yeah. Like before games when I was on the bus, I was one who was just relaxed. I was trying to emulate me being relaxed because I knew everybody else was nervous. But that's me just having a good EQ. I would fall asleep. I would fall asleep from the bus from here to the whatever venue we were going to. And but I also would read books, on planes and things. And so that's another whole, I guess, talk. But I just overly planned for everything, even the warm ups. Conversations when new coaches would come in, I would figure out their entire background, do research on them because I was going to have to, somehow or some way go in front of them and speak to them about my program. And so I needed to have that background. So overly preparing for everything. Yes. Yeah.
Um, was that like a skill that you had to develop over time? Or was that just kind of innate for you? That
No,
desire to be always prepared, like a Boy Scout?
I think, and so I grew up in Iowa, so I went to a program called the Indian Guides.
Okay.
But that Yeah, I guess that probably started at a younger age. I'm from Iowa, originally from Fort Dodge, Iowa, and we had a farm, but I didn't live on a farm, but I had to work on a farm. And so my parents instilled that work ethic with me a long time ago, and when I was very young. And so always, you know, keeping myself, I guess, in a military term, like squared away. Like I was always trying to be squared away with everything, and then move that to the next level. It starts with certain things and then moves into your car and it moves into how you carry your backpack and it moves into or what's in your backpack and moves into what your room looks like and how often do you do your laundry and all that stuff and how you categorize things and square them all away all of that stuff matters. How you set up for a lift. Are you even set up for a lift? When do you show up for said lift? Are you showing up 15 minutes before, or really the lift in my head was already done the night before? It just had to play out already in the morning time. That's why I said sometimes I got scared for lifts, because I would get scared if people would actually not necessarily show up. And sometimes that did happen when guys wouldn't show up, but would they show up and perform at a 90%? Or would they show up at a 75% when I needed them at a 90? So
I think that's a phenomenal pivot to the conversation, because something that really fascinates me is we're whether you are a Patrick Ewing and Allen Iverson, a high performer, or you're Paul O'Neill, Mike Hill, Todd Hammer, we're all people. And if we want to perform at our best, there has to be something about how our coach or our leader appeals to us as people and communicates to us in a way that kind of teases out that biggest, best performance. How has that approach changed for you over the years? Because I feel as though, I can speak from my own experience as a young coach, I was very much like, hey, you're here to perform. These are the X's and O's. Go do what you do. Whereas now later in my career, yes, I'm out of that more high pressure environment of collegiate strength, but I deal with people. I'm like, how do
yeah,
I get the best performance out of this individual at this point in time? The X's and O's are kind of almost an afterthought.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree. Um, and I'm going to trademark the quote, but I don't know if I came up with this, but I know I started saying it around about, I would say 10 years ago. It's not about the program. It's actually about the program. So it's not about your sets and reps. It's actually about how you run your program. And I'll throw out another acronym is RDL. So how your program runs is on an RDL. RDLs are becoming back and trendy now, and heavy RDLs and going again. It's
Oh
everything's
yeah.
posterior and it's behind you, but what's behind you is actually in front of you, which is relationships, how you develop those relationships, and then the lifestyle that you lead with that relationship. So with coaching for me, first I want to learn who you are, what makes you tick, and sort of meet you where you're at. Then when I meet you where you're at, I can take that just like a volume. I can turn it up, I can turn it down, or just like a DJ does and moves with the
Hmm.
DJ machine, whatever that's called. I can move that up, move that down, and develop that relationship, right? Or then next, or sorry, the L for lifestyle, then I can train you for lifestyle. I can move and start manipulating and adding in things, taking away things, right? So relationships, develop that relationship, and then train you for lifestyle. So that's more of kind of my, and I guess that's the short way to say,
Yeah.
I am a player's coach. I'm a
Yeah.
coach's coach. I'm not going to come here and smash and grab job like a SWAT team coach and tell everybody to get on the ground and F you and F this, and you're going to do this. Otherwise, you're going to get out of here. And this is my system. I'm not a SWAT team coach. I'm more of somebody else who's going to come in and figure out what's going on, what makes you tick. And then I can move that to the left or to the right.
Did you evolve to that point, or has that always been your approach?
Uh, I think that just comes with, being around a lot of people, my parents being very social, us traveling a lot throughout, me having a lot of friends, not a small group of friends, but a very large group of friends traveling around, and me being, wearing, I should say, a lot of different hats. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where I was always good at making connections with people. So making those connections with people. And so as you're a coach, your connections, if you put it in the numbers base, if it on a 10 scale, or an RPE scale or something, you got this kid at a 10, you got this kid at a 2, you got this kid at a 5, and this, that, and the other. There's numbers, there's colors, there's all of that to all those kids and those relationships and athletes. So if you know that information, you can make those connections and you can start moving towards it or away from it. Some athletes don't like too much coaching. Some athletes need too much coaching. Some athletes are craving for it. You just don't know it yet, and you need to get it behind all that stuff. I think I knew the connection piece, and the connection piece always worked for me. But I've definitely evolved to, not necessarily throwing the program at them right away.
Mhm.
It's more, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to take a consultation per se, whether it's just consultation during the workout or if it's just knowing you for a certain amount of time. And then I'm going to show you this program rather than giving the program first. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's I'm really trying to hammer home to people that it's like it doesn't matter who you're coaching, what context you're coaching in. Your ability to form relationships and your ability to, like you said, make connections is really what's going to be a catalyst to drive any result that you're seeking. Whether you're talking about business or whether you're talking about a weight room, it's always about the connections that you're able to make with people. Um, I'm going to kind of come full circle a little bit back to something you said before. You like to make sure that you're all squared away.
Mm-hmm.
How does cut off t-shirt and sandals squared away, Michael?
Very good point. Very good point. That that came from being removed, I guess, from the athletic department. So we were housed up in Yates Fieldhouse, which
Yeah.
was in the rec center.
Oh, okay.
So us being removed from all of the athletic department, our lifts kind of blended into, with other teams' lifts and whatnot. Then we had to, institute we actually instituted a khaki short and polo rule, which quickly went out the door after day two. And
Yeah, no
so,
chance.
yeah, yeah. So, but I guess it's just with the times. It was 2005, and we were the strength and conditioning coaches, and evolving, say 2010, 5 years later, to sports performance and evolving with those times. Um, it's not to say I wasn't planning or preparing with cutoff shirts,
Of
but I
course, yeah.
definitely was. I definitely was. It just wasn't. It was what I thought was for full circle, but really, nowadays I still am looking for those little slivers and those percentages that I'm not closing the gap on to have that full circle. You know.
I think it gives you an edge, right? Like
Mhm.
I never had like a khaki shorts polo rule, but I was like always about like tuck in your shirt, tie your shoes. If your shirt's not tucked in and your shoes aren't tied and you come into my weight room, you have 100 burpees.
Mhm.
And I took that with me when I was the head strength coach up here at Queens. And honestly, at the beginning, they were like, what the hell, man? And within a week, everybody loved it. They were calling out each other on it, and it became part of the culture. And my edge was they were all just a little bit afraid of me. So I
Yeah.
had that little bit of an edge, but they knew that I cared. And they knew that I was trying to create a culture of professionalism, of effort, of preparedness that translated from that weight room onto the field. And I think the the next question I would have for you is how do you see the role of the strength coach within establishing that team culture? Because in like I know, for example, with football, you're spending way more time with your strength coach than you are with your head coach. Is it the same with basketball?
Yeah, yeah, I would say, and there's different aspects and different sports, and I guess different schools. I was with me specifically at Georgetown with Georgetown basketball. There was a culture that I didn't create. I had to come in and continue that culture.
Mhm.
So I came in and I had to, we were Jordan school, and so I had to have 3 Jordan signs on me at all times: shirt, short, and shoes. The players had 4: shirt, short, shoes, and socks. Um, we were expected to come in at certain times. We were expected to not have hats on when we entered the building. Uh, not that I was wearing hats, or also jewelry and earrings and headphones and hoods. That was a no go when you enter a building. Same thing. There was different practice rules, how we prepare for our games, how we travel. So that culture was already there. I just had to come in, learn that culture, and then believe it myself, but also emulate it myself, and then try and teach it to the athletes. So I the role of the strength coach creating the culture, I think that should be one, the school, but also the athletic department, but also the head coach, the athletic director. Everybody should be involved in that. And that's one thing with college athletics now. You're seeing men's and women's basketball kind of go off, football go off on their own, and kind of Olympic do their own thing. And then, you got the groups over here when a new football coach comes in, and all of a sudden that culture is completely different than all the rest of the school's culture. So I think all of that should be aligned. And I think, college athletics should recognize that they're college athletics and they're not the military. There's definitely a distinct
Well said.
differentiation between the two. However, I think they both can learn from each other. I think they both, our college athletes need a little bit more of that discipline, and then the military needs a little bit more sports performance and agility-ish and not such rigidity. So
we've talked a little bit about kind of the evolution of you as a strength coach. I'd like to talk a little bit about the evolution of the student athlete, because it's one thing like, I mean, I've been a strength and conditioning coach now in some capacity for 18 years. The type of person I am coaching is drastically different than it was 18 years ago. And it doesn't matter if 18 years ago I was coaching an 18-year-old or I'm coaching an 18-year-old now. That's a totally different 18-year-old. Are you seeing that same thing on your end?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think every generation complains about the next generation and the next generation, but really what has changed is obviously technology and the information. 20 years ago, you couldn't get the amount of information that there is now, especially on strength and conditioning and programs. Now they can go research, and everyone has the massive amount and almost to a paralysis of information, and almost I shouldn't even say disinformation or wrong information, but they have access to it. And so you have to be aware of that. You have to even build that relationship and that connection even deeper, so I shouldn't say they don't question you. If it's kind of shaky and your information is shaky and your program's shaky and you're not presenting it well, yes, they are going to go and they're going to go look without. I've gotten challenged, as a basketball strength coach. And there's other strength coaches out there that do it better than me, but I'm trying to chase that and chase what I have and be the best version of me. There's always going to be places who have better resources, more money, or better facilities, and all of that. The grass is always greener on the other side, right? Mm-hmm. But I have to sell my product myself, Georgetown University, and Georgetown men's basketball, I guess specifically, the information that I'm giving them. But now and I'll say information, but I'll caveat to that, is now the NIL. Is now
right.
You're seeing a whole new, and I'll say the force velocity curve, but you're seeing a whole new force velocity curve with your players, but the amount of money that they're making. So you have a locker room with a velocity or a curve of how much money. You've got a little amount of players over here that are making a ton of money, and then it slowly goes down, and that could be adverse to also playing time, right? But it slowly goes down into where kids are not making very much money. How you manage that curve is very important, because that is your locker room, right? It's just as important as how you are managing your phases and your strength, right? However you periodize that out. But as a coach, you have to be aware of that, because you could have a kid in your locker room making $500,000, and then a kid who literally can't, is only living off of what the basketball program or the football program gives them,
right.
And is wearing nothing but issued gear, and can't go out and buy all the flashy stuff. And so there creates a lot of tension and friction, and how you manage that is a whole nother culture from the 2000s, really.
I often hear like, oh, this generation is lost, or this generation doesn't work hard, or this generation is lazy. I fight back on that, because number one, I love playing devil's advocate. It's one of my favorite things in the world. But number two, I think the quality of the current athlete is they want to work hard, but they need to know that what they're doing is the best thing for them. And so they're unable to work hard unless they have the confidence in whatever plan that you're putting forth that it is going to be the best. And I think that there's two edges to that sword, right? There's, okay, great, let's look for the best opportunity to be successful. But we can't let apathy be the other end, right? It can't be, I'm not going to do anything unless it's the best. It has to be, I'm going to keep working hard until I find the best thing for me. But I think you hit the nail on the head. If they have trust in you and you have a good relationship with them, you're going to get that hard work, and they won't question you because they'll trust in your capacities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and I guess you hear, in the military, I can't, I'm not talking a whole lot about the military, but I kind of am. But
Yeah.
same with the military aspect of college athletics, because 5 years ago, there was a lot of programs who were trying to instill military aspects into their programs, and military formational training and all that stuff. Um, but in the SEAL teams, obviously they're yelling, they're trying to get you through certain stages, but really you're there. You can quit whenever you want. Voluntary withdrawal, right? On
Yeah.
certain aspects. But some of the times, I mean, those guys are just crossing their arms and saying, "Do you want to be here?" I mean, they're silently saying, "Do you want to be here?" And you have to look internally to yourself and what motivates you. And I think college athletics misses a lot of that. It's like, what have you done for me lately kind of atmosphere in college athletics is like, show me this. Whereas like, you know, you're right. The student athletes, they do want to work. They do want to work hard. They just want to know why they're working hard. And I think that's missing from the coaches, but also from the athletes. I think it's a kind of twofold.
One thing that I think people might not be aware of is how often in collegiate athletics, I'm going to use the words morals and ethics, but I don't think it's actually morals and ethics. I think it's more so like philosophy. How often your personal philosophy gets challenged by people who have no direct knowledge of what it is you actually do.
Mm-hmm.
So to be in a school for 20 years, I can imagine that you're quite adept at navigating those types of situations.
Yeah. Yes. I guess for me, and this is, I guess, kind of like a perfect time for a Bruce Lee quote, as having a philosophy without having a philosophy, having a system of non-systems is, I never wanted to be put into one bucket. And it comes back to me being good at everything, but not great at anything. It's, I wanted to be a full spectrum practitioner, knowing everything, which means, yes, the barbell is very important. But you go to somebody like Pavel, he will tell you different, a little bit different. You go to somebody like a Paul Chek, he will tell you something different, and they're still getting people strong. And those two people that I, looked at growing up into what type of systems they're using, but also my strength coach, Coach Augie Morelli, Coach Craig Fitzgerald, who was a good mentor, Todd Hammer, but also people who were here at Georgetown with me, a Harrison Bernstein or like a Martin Rooney. But all of those, you know, and have systems within systems, but there's no system. They all kind of evolved. Every single one of them have evolved throughout the years. And so if I knew that going in, I didn't want to get myself pigeonholed into just doing one thing. Um, Bill Starr, and that's a name I didn't mention on purpose, but Bill Starr is the first kind of strength coach that first strength coach Augie Morelli had, first strength coach that I had besides Augie that I had a connection to within programming. So Big Three. His book, Only the Strong Shall Survive, learning that system is perfect. Perfect for a lot of reasons, but it's a system that people use. And so once you learn the system and know the rules, you can start breaking the rules. That system will get you so far, and then you can start breaking those rules. And so I started taking, learning different practices and systems and putting them together into my own, and just kind of became clear as, right, I'm just going to take all of these, right, and just put them into my own algorithm and then spit out what is useful, reject what is useless, and spit out what is useful. So Yeah, navigating those waters with being here for 20 years is I've been very, I guess my best ability is adaptability and
Yep.
availability. But adaptability, being able to adapt to certain situations. I've been very lucky to have two head coaches, but also just two athletic directors. So it really, has been a blessing on that end that I've been challenged, I guess more so from a lot of assistant coaches,
Mm.
who come in, and that's why you have to get buy-in from those assistant coaches early. You got to get buy-in and that consistency of showing them over time and just etching away. You're not going to flip it over, and they're not going to become believers day one. But day 100, they may come back and start asking you for advice. So you better have your shit together. So
I like to look at kind of the evolution of knowledge along three distinct places. So when you start learning something, you kind of start to imitate it. You're like, okay, well, I'm just going to try and do what this person does. Then as you learn from different people, you start integrating different things into this kind of nebulous philosophy where you're putting random pieces into a puzzle. But then eventually you get to this point later on in your career where you start innovating yourself. So you go from imitation to integration into innovation, and you develop your own system that is ultimately the amalgamation of the useful pieces of everyone else's system. And I think a lot of us kind of stop at that innovator and forget that it's okay to imitate sometimes. It's okay to go back, learn new things. And I think the people that are most successful consistently progress in that loop and kind of move along back and forth on that spectrum. And that never stops. And I think that's the beauty of the art of training, right? As the person in front of you changes, so do you, and that's how you continue to evolve. Have you found that to be true with yourself along the journey?
absolutely, you said that much better than I did. And that's one. This is I I'm writing a book. And
Oh, we're
so
going to talk about that. Don't worry.
okay, I'll leave that aside. But that evolution, I think, in just this past weekend, Bo Sandoval, that Summer Strong 17, said, if you come across somebody who knows it all, run the other way. And I believe that's so true. If you come to someone who knows it all, or thinks they know it all, or has the ego of knowing it all, right, step away from them, because nobody knows it all. No one knows. No one has gathered all the information yet. Even the most, the people that are on your strength coach Mount Rushmore, those people and those mentors that you have still don't know it, and they're still learning, with you, and learning through teaching you, as a mentor mentee. And so, yeah, that's very important.
So you're writing a book.
Yeah,
Is this the exit of Mike Hill from collegiate athletics, or is this just
I
the
don't
next
know.
evolution?
I don't know. We'll wait and see. Maybe. Um, I would like to, again, as I say, I could stay at Georgetown for the rest of my life, but I could also leave tomorrow. So it's something that I've always wanted to do. There's a lot of projects that I've worked on here and there. Started, kind of never finished some things, but this is my, when I say I don't have a philosophy, this is more me kind of giving back to strength and conditioning, I guess. So,
So tell me about it. What's the book?
so the book is, and I can give you the title is a working title, but really, I tried going through the editorial process is new to me. I basically just wrote the book really on basketball trips. When I was traveling and I was on the plane, or I was in my room and I had some downtime, and just started throwing post-it notes here and there together, and all my craziness and just intuition would come to me, and I'd throw it on a little post-it note and put it together, and I started writing it out. I guess I first put it into a PowerPoint presentation, and then I started writing it out in long form, and then I figured that this is a too massive a project, and so I cut it in half, and really two books, but really it's the most relevant. It's called Theoretical Physicalist. And I took that as a play on words, is not to really mean physicalist, but that's what we do. We do physical things, and really everything that we're doing and talking about systems and all of this, it's all theory, right?
Of
You
course.
know, it's all theory. It's you're creating a hypothesis and you have a theory about something, and we're practicing it. So really, theoretical physicalist, and then the other portion of that, the subtitle is strength and conditioning. So theoretical physicalist, S and C, strength and conditioning, S and C, symbols and concepts. So I'll give you one example. So everyone knows about yin and yang. I mean, that's balance. You have to learn. If you can learn balance, you can understand a lot of different things. And I elaborate within the book uh, about the balance. And you could take it as work-life balance. You could take it as training balance, training and recovery. If you understand that simple concept, then you're going to flourish within the system. Another one I can give you, and I don't want to spoil too many of these.
No, no, no. Yeah, whatever you're
Some of
comfortable with.
them are definitely, I shouldn't say original, but presented this way is is eye opening. Probably gonna be eye opening for some strength coaches. But I'll say one is everybody you always see, and I'll say uh, John Wooden's um, pyramid to success, right? So John Wooden's pyramid to success is a traditional pyramid where there's a base. You go to this, you go to this, you go to this, and then you're elite. What happens when you get to the top, right? Do you come back down? Do you restart the process over, or all of a sudden you become elite and then you never work on the basics? For me, I wanted something that represents what we do, progression, which is really progression, regression, what we do as a profession. And if you look at fractal patterns, and specifically a fractal pattern called the Sierpinski triangle, that is what we do on a day to day as humans. So you are a triangle, and the points of the triangle are important. And I explain what those
Hmm.
triangles are. If you calculate it as 1, 2, 3, or A, B, and C, but we are humans as this triangle. Everything we do stays within this, and we grow. How much information, how many books you read, how many podcasts you do, your daily routine continues to be this fractal pattern that just emulates over and over. And when you talk about the spiral, it just keeps repeating itself, and it's a repeating pattern for infinity, but the triangle stays the same. Uh, that's just kind of one concept within progression and regression of what we're doing as sports performance coaches. So I take what we do and the buckets of things that we do as performance coaches, and I really put it into symbols and concepts, just simple symbols and concepts. And when you look at sports in general, when you go and you talk to basketball coaches or football coaches, they'll break it down into some systems, but there'll be some symbols and there will be some concepts. Whether it takes you a while to get to that, there's always some symbols and there's always some concepts to
Here I am thinking strength coaches are big dumb meatheads.
that. Yeah, that's definitely it's definitely a stereotype. It's a traditional stereotype. Or they have slick back hair and a long beard, long gray beard, which that's what I try and emulate these days. But
Well, I mean, so I usually ask stupid questions at the end, but there's a few more real ones that I want to ask, but I'll just ask the stupid right off the beginning. Did you ever feel like you had to overcompensate with intellect because you actually had hair and most strength coaches don't?
oh man, yeah. I mean, I guess I guess I'm not the strongest. I'm not the fastest, but damn, I better be the best good look. I better be the
Yep.
most good looking strength coach out there, right?
That I
Um,
felt the same way. I'm like, I
yeah,
got great hair. I'm never going to fit in this profession.
yeah.
I got to be really good looking at
I
least.
got to be really extremely good looking. Um, yeah, I guess that's I most people would probably stereotype the strength coach for men's basketball at Georgetown, and then they come here and see me. I mean, I used to grow my hair out and then shave it and donate it to Locks of Love, and so I did
Mhm.
that multiple times. For I guess that's longer explanation, but I used to do that many. many evolutions of that over the years. And so if you're, typical thinking coming from the outside is like, who would be the strength coach of Georgetown's men's basketball? And then you show up and it's some little small kid from Iowa with long hair and a beard. Um, you're definitely, you're
You got
definitely
the at least you got the beard. Like if you're a strength coach, you have to have a beard, or like the dude at Oregon with the great mustache.
yeah.
Like that. That's a good look. Um, so one thing, like I touched on this when we saw each other a few weeks ago, or actually a couple months ago now. I find that you talk about balance, you talk about work-life balance, you talk about all the different things. Like CAV is very big on integration. So your work and your life have to integrate for you to be truly happy, um, which I do agree with. But at the same time, balance does exist in the big picture.
Mhm.
There are periods of sprints, there are periods of pushes, and there are periods of pullback. And you need both of those to be truly fulfilled as a person, I feel. You're a father now, you're a family man. So, how has that changed your, I would guess the word I want to use is investment into your job? Because the reason that I left strength and conditioning is because I didn't have any balance and my lifestyle was totally fucked. And then I see someone like yourself who's, for all intents and purposes, fulfilled. He's a father, he's devoting time to his family. How has that dynamic changed you as a coach?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess, for purposes of the book, using the term balance, and but also there's another term. It's effectiveness, like
Mm.
work life effectiveness. How is it? How effective is it over here? How effective is it over here? Because really, when you get down to the yin and yang, it spirals around, and there's one portion and the other. You're always one place, but you're in the other place. You're never here. You're never there. And so it's more of how effective are you? And I will say this, with all transparency, 5 years ago, I was not effective. It was a lot of it was working towards my goal of being present as the best basketball strength coach as I possibly be. And so saying that as, I was at every practice. I was an hour and a half early for everything, and I was doing all that. But also, somebody on the back end was missing out, and that was my wife and daughter. And now I have a son who's 1 year old. So now they missed out, and so now I'm kind of on the latter half trying to make up for that. And even when I was at home and going home, I was still thinking about what I had to do. I would tell my wife, even my daughter, when she was able to speak, I would say, hey, I got to go to practice at this time. My wife would joke. She's like, you should just go now, because, you know, I would be waking up at 4 a.m. to get there, and it's midnight. And she would joke that you should just go now. And my daughter started saying that. And so that's when you got to take kind of a reality check and, course correct yourself with that. But now I am on the path, and I don't know, maybe not everyone has that perfect symmetry of work-life balance or work-life effectiveness. But that's the pursuit. That's the journey, is you're always trying to work towards that. And I would like to say that I've course corrected. I'm working towards that now, and it's working better. So now that I've stepped away from basketball and I'm just the associate athletic director of sports performance and I oversee the program, I can dictate my schedule a little bit better. So my Mondays and my Fridays are more task oriented, to where I can move and manipulate and be a little bit more flexible with that Monday and Friday. And then my Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are more meeting heavy per se, more structured to that. And so that's where I can, bell curve it out, get all my work done Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then just take care of task, or, integrate with other departments and walk around and walk out to practices, or walk out, see other coaches and talk to them, or do on-site visits, or, maybe the weekend, runs a little bit into Monday and I need to go do some other activities off campus on a Monday. And so I'm able to do that now. And so I am a lot more effective both at home and now my job. When I'm here, I'm there's higher visibility of me being in the main weight room and me being present with all the rest of the teams and the coaches. And it's not a phone call or a text message or me trying to give the task or the situation to another coach. Hey, you need to deal with this. Um, and so it's not perfect, but I'm definitely getting better at it.
Mm.
And now full transparency, my practice and my lift and all of that time has gone to my daughter. She is a swimmer, so I'm a swim dad, but she's also crushing Taekwondo, crushing it at a very fast rate. And every chance she gets, she wants to go to Taekwondo, but she wants me to come with her to Taekwondo to watch. And so I do. I show up and I'm watching it and kind of, I guess, living vicariously through her. So,
I love that. I think, listen, it takes a lot of humility to accept that you are not being the best version of yourself. I think it's probably one of the hardest realizations to come to. I want to say as a man, but just as a person, to know that, like, okay, I'm not doing what I need to do for the people around me. How do I course correct? And I'm sure the decision to take on the role of associate director and step away from basketball probably had a big portion to do with, I got to be a better dad.
yeah. Yeah. It was, you know, it's not ego or selfishness. It was more, I wanted to do a good job at this. And, but, I would always kind of think family was there. Family is family. It's my parents, my mom and dad, who are now both passed away. My sister still lives in Iowa. So it shouldn't say that they were away, but when I was at work and I was fully in,
Mhm.
fully in with work, and I would go home and be present at home. But, yeah, I just had to, and it wasn't just like a flash. It wasn't just like, hey, I need to do this. It wasn't kind of an evolution. It was an evolution. And I'll say, I've been married for over, we got married in 2010, so over 14 years. And we have a great relationship. And it took, I think, my daughter really, when she was able to recognize that I wasn't at her stuff, to kind of be like, okay, I need to correct this. I need to right this ship. If I want to have a meaningful relationship and build it with her in her younger years before she goes off to college herself. So,
I think using that as a backdrop to kind of wrap things up, one of the themes that has come up over the course of our conversation today is self awareness. Like a big part of your evolution as a coach, the evolution of Georgetown Strength and Conditioning, the evolution of Mike as a husband and father has been just being incredibly self aware along this journey and using the feedback that you're getting from all areas of your life to elevate yourself. The tagline that I have for myself, my businesses, is I'm always trying to raise the bar for myself,
mhm.
in whatever I'm trying to do. And what are some practices that you engage in, maybe on a daily, weekly, quarterly basis, to raise the bar for yourself?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess I can start with my workouts personally. Personally, I'm working out roughly 6 days a week. So 3 days a week I do some weight training. 2 days a week I still do what I call my movement meditation, but really, or chaotic cardio, which is basketball, which is chaotic cardio, right? And
Yeah.
old man cardio. But really, it's movement meditation for me, where I get up and I, shoot some shots, and I have an hour routine that I do, and I like to do it, and I think about, and I have problems, and I have, my little post-it notes, and I may have a problem or situation for that day or that week, or, like this talk, and I may go through that in my head, or sometimes there may be nothing, completely nothing going through my head other than I need to move around and just, for what is missing with a lot of people's training when they get older is play, is really play, and that chaotic playness, and that's just manifests itself into something which is a basket and a ball and myself moving around and creating these movements, whether I make shots or not, which I do make a lot of shots, right?
I
I get a
listen.
good stroke.
Probably your jumper's probably wet as fuck.
So I do that twice a week, and then on Saturdays or Sundays, and it kind of pivots to one or the other. Um, That's when I kind of do, like, I shouldn't say this, but it's kind of like my military style training, my performance readiness training is basically either I'm going to run a mile, I'm going to ruck, I'm going to do push up, pull up, sit up, some form of that body weight ish, style, because I always want to be ready for that.
Mhm.
But some things, I do is I try and besides that, those six things and then I usually take one day off is I'll try and control the first hour of my day, but also the last hour of my day. So
Okay.
waking up, going through, routine of waking up and brushing your teeth and then going and drinking, full glass of water, taking, supplements, but also before I kind of have your coffee. But then when I get in my car, I don't listen to music. I call it my morning motivation. I usually listen to some type. It could be anything, motivation. It could be Alan Watts. It could be, uh, TD Jakes. It could be anything. Whatever it is, Jocko. Listen to that on my way to work, not to necessarily to pump myself up, but I want to listen to something that's positive. I listen to music all day long, or I'm around
Yeah.
music all day long. So I would rather, or instrumental is something, something that's instrumental to where I'm thinking about what's going to happen for that day. But it's usually my morning motivation. And I actually just go on YouTube and click on, the algorithm gives me a laundry list of YouTube clips to come up with, and I'll hit one of them. So that's really controlling my first hour of the day. The last hour out of my day is it's really starts with winding down. Again, I guess taking some magnesium, taking some creatine, winding myself down, not drinking as much water, having a set point to cut myself off with that, but laying down and reading books with my son, reading books with my daughter, and then just kind of down regulating myself, because within that is no screen time and putting your phone
Mhm.
away, and same thing in the morning time, trying to limit your screen time until I get into my car. But if I can kind of control that or move and manipulate those two set points along with the each day set point of working out, it just works. It
Yeah.
just, for me, I also have three different journals, I guess. So
Mhm.
I have a work journal that I use for my work. I also have a journal that I'm writing down all of my workouts, but what I'm ingesting, and that's books, that's podcasts, that's food. So it's what I'm hearing, what I'm listening to, what I'm ingesting, what I'm eating, and what I'm performing. Then my last one is just ideas, crazy ideas. So I have one right here. This is a book, Assassin's Creed. It's got ideas. I've got another one over here, but I have everything that comes to me, or I learn, or when I go to a seminar, I take one of these books and I write all my thoughts. I shouldn't say knowledge, but ideas into that
Mhm.
journal, and that helps me to kind of categorize uh, what I'm doing there during the day, and helps me push myself, you know, to the next level. And those are the main things that kind of help me to be the
Yeah.
best version of myself. But it keeps me on track, and I guess it comes back to just being consistent. All of that stuff is set points to keep myself consistent on track. Like I said, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest, but holy shit, I'll fucking outlast anybody, right? And I apologize for
No.
saying that,
It
but that's exactly it. Like, I will
Oh, yeah.
outlast, which means, and I'll give you a story. The first day I walked into Georgetown basketball practice, because it's Hoya paranoia, it's locked, right? The door is locked, they put tape over it, right? I recognized that, one, nobody wore a watch. That was the first thing, right? Nobody really talked. Nobody had cell phones. But also, the two people that were sitting down had over 20 years of experience, right? So that was Big Coach Thompson. And the other person that sat down was Miss Lori Michael, who was the athletic trainer. So is a legendary athletic trainer. She started back with him. I mean, he got the job in 1979, and I think she started in 1980, right around there. Those two were the only two people that were sitting down. So I wasn't going to be the first guy to go in there and take a knee or sit down. I recognized there was managers running around giving water bottles. How can I add value where value is needed? And so I grabbed a towel and I started doing what managers do. I ran around, I picked up guys, and slowly but surely I started gaining the respect of the managers, but I would gain the respect of the coaches, and I gained respect of the players. But lo and behold, I gained the respect of Big Coach Thompson. So he pulled me over there one day and he said, "Son, I noticed you aren't sitting down." I was like, "Coach, I'm not sitting down." And I told him kind of this little scenario is what I'm telling you. And he said, "I'll see that after a year." Well, we'll see. After a year, I never sat down, and I've never sat down since at a practice. Now, at the end of practice, when practice is over, I'll go back to my office and I'll sit down. Or if maybe in the middle of practice, I got to go do something, I got to go drive somewhere and get some food or pick something up, yeah, I obviously got to sit down. But while practice is in session, I've never sat down ever, right? And that was 13 years as a head in practice, not once. And so I just kind of that's something that was consistent with me, but just I guess speaks to my inner workings and
Mhm.
how I go through my thought processes and philosophies. But I don't want to be the guy. I should say, hopefully I'm a great leader, but I'm also a great follower. But it's not about me; it's about we. It's about the team, putting the team before the self. So, yeah, I never sat down. I still
I,
haven't.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a great point to end the serious part of this conversation and head into the ridiculousness. You mentioned you like to be squared away. Do you make your bed in the morning?
I do. Yeah, I do make my bed. Yeah.
Ah, no.
I do make it.
I'm like I'm on a crusade against bed making because I think it's the most non-utilitarian thing in the world. It
Yeah.
serves zero purpose to me.
Yeah. Well, if for the purpose of, dead skin and bugs and all parasites and all that other stuff, you should probably keep your bed open and shine some light on it and burn all that stuff off.
There you go. I'm going to tell my wife that.
Yeah. You should leave it open, put a fan, open the windows, air out your dead skin, burn it all off with some ultraviolet light. And then, so yeah, you would be right there.
What is your favorite pair of Jordans?
Oh, yeah, I've got a Jordan problem, if you could say that. That's one thing my wife does not likes about the job, but does not like about the job, because I still have them all from 20 years in my basement. Um, I would say my favorite pair of Jordans are probably we got a pair of retro ones, retro Hoyas PE Player Edition ones, and they're probably my favorite. It's just the original, I guess, Jordans.
Yeah.
I'm not a high top guy, but they're high tops. But I do enjoy the low tops.
I'm
Most
staring at
people would
my
say the 11s. Most people would say the 11s.
dude,
Those
the
were,
11s are fire. I'm
yeah.
staring at my Fresh Prince 5s right
There you
now.
go. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There could be a book about that. How to categorize people by what types of Jordans they like. Yeah.
That would actually be a really interesting short story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if there was one person that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, who would it be? But the caveat is that you have to help me get them on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
I'm really good at getting people to do my job for me.
I would, that's a good question. I could say a lot, one, our network and how we got connected was obviously Coach Todd Hammer. But also someone within that system would be Coach Carl Johnson, is someone who that is a person who, I'll say this, he needed me, but I needed him. And that was more, he came in and I was a full-time member, but he was an intern. However, he was far more advanced with me in his knowledge, skills, and abilities. So and I think we complement each other very well, and so I would have to say Captain Carl Johnson. Yeah.
I would definitely take that. Mike, thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're someone who I've looked up to so much just in this industry as a professional, as a man. And it was so great to reconnect a couple months ago, and looking forward to continuing this friendship moving forward. And
Absolutely.
I can't wait to read your book, man.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely, once it gets through the editorial, meat grinder,
Yeah.
hopefully there's something that's positive at the end. So
I will have links to where everyone can find you in the show notes. But do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Oh man, I'm not. Maybe yeah, I'm not. Maybe silence. Maybe just silence, and people can understand what I'm saying with that silence. But I think, I guess maybe a quote by Albert Einstein: "The only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once." And I think that's one thing that strength coaches, that's what we're emulating. We have to periodize everything. We have to progression, regression, have balance for all that, and it takes time. And so that's the reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen all at once. And you should also not try and gather all that information at once, and you should not all try and give it away at once, as it takes time. So
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And we'll catch you on the next one.